And we're back again. It's us, the Horror Guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are the Horror Guys.
We're here for episode 156, where we're going to talk about some horror movies and a short.
As usual, we got 4 horror movies and a short film.
This week we got Antlers from 2021 and Lake Mungo from 2008, second film of The Nightmare on Elm Street, and an old one with Attack of the Giant Leeches.
Ooh, I'll bet
1959.
That's a good one.
Well, and we have 5 issues of the Horror Bulletin is now available. The 5th edition, the February edition is now available.
Yeah, it's got, I think, 31 reviews in it, including all those shark reviews from a couple weeks ago.
We compile all the reviews and some bonus material. And
the bonus reviews are in there as well. And this week, if you are signed up over at horrorbulletin.com for our weekly newsletter, you get all the same stuff as on our website, but you also get 2 or 3 bonus reviews every week.
Hot diggity.
This week's bonus reviews that are coming out same time as the podcast include Space Sweepers. Not even remotely horror, but it was a fun movie.
It was. It was a good one.
The Birds, Hitchcock's famous 1963 horror film. And Chud, one you may or may not remember from 1984.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Or it could be, something...
Chemically hazardous urban disposal?
There you
something
go.
Along
Chemical
those lines.
hazard urban disposal, yeah.
Yep.
Depends on whether you're on the political side or on the mutant side.
Covering it up, or, yeah. And there's also a number of fine books available that you should check out on the website.
Yeah, always.
Yes. Uh-huh.
The Horror Guy's Guide to the Horror Films of Vincent Price is the newest one. Every single horror film that Vincent Price was in. We go through, do the full synopsis, the commentary, and there's some good stuff. It's not just all horror films. It's some of his best and worst films in his opinion, and some other good stuff too.
And there's some short story collections, Tales to Make You Shiver.
Brrr, they're scary stuff. Tales to Make You Shiver, Volume 1, Tales to Make You Shiver, Volume 2. And we keep saying one of these days we're going to do a Volume 3, and we just never do it.
One of these days.
Someday it'll happen. And that'll be a cold day because you'll be shivering. All right, so off to this week's movies.
You betcha.
Here we go. What's up first?
We got Antlers from 2021, directed by Scott Cooper, written by Henry Chason, Nick Anaska, and Scott Cooper. Stars Kerry Russell, Jesse Plemons, Jeremy T. Thomas. Runtime's an hour and 39 minutes, and we got a link to the trailer.
Okay.
This was a good one.
Okay, no spoilers at this point. What is the spoiler-free judgment?
Well, it's a grim and depressing film that's pretty terrific. I mean, it's not a happy movie. No.
No one here is happy.
Oh, boy. It builds nicely, gradually letting us figure out what's going on and what has already gone on. And the characters have a lot of depth. Child actors are especially good. I mean, that's kind of a rarity sometimes where you're rooting for the child actor to
more
buy
and
it.
more with the big budget type of horror films, the child actors are getting better.
Yeah,
they're not always
they are.
the ones you want to die first.
Yeah, and the special effects are really top notch.
Yeah, we liked it.
All in all, big thumbs up.
Okay, spoilers.
Spoiler zone. Yeah, this does have them, so you are warned.
Here come the spoilers for our synopsis. Well, we are told by narration that Mother Earth has been pillaged, and this has awakened a malevolent spirit. Never heard that kind of story before. Well, this guy named Frank works in the old abandoned mine while his son Lucas waits in the car. They both hear strange sounds, and the man goes down into the tunnels beneath the place. They have a meth lab down there. He's not a miner, he's a meth worker.
Classy. Bring your son to wait in the car
while
you work on the
meth lab.
Yeah.
Yes. Frank and his partner go to investigate odd sounds down in the mine shaft. We don't see the thing, but something attacks them both. Then the boy goes inside looking for Dad, and credits roll. All right. We move a little bit forward here, and Julia is a recovering alcoholic and a teacher in Oregon. She's explaining the Native American storytelling and folklore to a bored classroom.
Yeah, she doesn't quite connect with the kids. She's having a little trouble as a teacher.
Yeah.
Working at it.
She's an outsider.
Yeah, kind of.
Lucas, Frank's son, is one of her students. Lucas goes home to an empty-looking house, and we see that he has a locked room inside. Something on the other side of the door bangs against it. We hear on the radio that the mine is going to be reopening soon. What could go wrong?
And this is, Frank has two sons. There's an older kid, and it was the smaller one. The younger brother was at the beginning. That is right, isn't it?
No, I think it was the older son who was in the car. The older son knows everything. He's the one kind of running the show.
Okay.
We'll talk more about the younger one later.
Okay.
Julia goes home, and we see that her brother Paul is the sheriff. And for like 3/4 of the movie, I thought they were a very strange married couple.
Oh,
no, they're brother
you
and
missed
sister.
that. Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, you mentions that right away.
Something weighs on her mind as she takes pictures off the wall. She thinks that she'll be moving out soon, and her brother says she's welcome to stay. Neither of them seem pleased with their lives or their jobs. Very unhappy place.
Yeah, it is.
And the whole movie is filled like with a gray filter. It's like the most depressing place in the world
It
you
is.
could possibly want to live.
There's not a lot of happiness here.
In class, 12-year-old Lucas reads a creepy story that he wrote to the class. It's about the 3 bears, but it's not the usual pleasant version. Julia calls Lucas's house, but of course no one answers. She follows Lucas home that afternoon, and Lucas says he lives with his brother. She goes inside the house, and she hears the thing behind the door growling, but she leaves without going any further. Lucas feeds roadkill to his younger brother, and what appears to be a mutated version of his father.
Meat.
Paul gets a report from Stokes, the retired sheriff, who found part of a dead man in the woods. The other half was found inside the old mine.
That's Frank's partner.
It was. We see that Julia still has PTSD from her abusive father, and she tells Paul what she heard at Frank's house. See, now, Julia had an abusive father, and I guess Paul did too, because they're brother and sister, and there's something going on there that we don't quite know the whole story to yet.
They never reveal the whole thing.
They don't.
But they piece it together.
But there's a little bit of parallel there with Frank, the abusive father, so she sympathizes with Lucas quite a bit.
Well, and I don't know if Frank was really abusive, but more neglectful and...
Meth lab guy, yeah.
A lot of drug use, and
Okay, so their father eventually died, and Paul had inherited the house. There's a lot of pain, grief, and baggage between these two. Julia goes through Lucas's school desk and finds many creepy drawings. She goes to the principal with that information, and the principal then goes to Lucas's house and hears Lucas's brother crying inside the locked room. You know, you go to somebody's house and there's a little kid locked behind the door, you tend to get a little concerned there.
Yeah, and she does.
She goes up to the attic.
And it works out poorly.
And finds more than she expected. We get a good look at Frank this time as he eats her and sort of glows from within. With the extra protein, he mutates further. On the way home from school, Lucas is accosted by Clint, the school bully, who soon finds out there are worse things than bullies in the woods. Lucas runs home to find that Frank has escaped. Paul goes looking for the missing principal and ends up at Frank's house. They don't have a warrant, so they don't go in. Julie finds the principal's card, so they have probable cause. Oh no, she finds her car. Her card. Autocorrect is killing me today. So the police now have probable cause, and they go inside and find the body. Or what's left of it. Some of Frank's body. We get a flashback to what happened with Frank and Aiden and the locked door right after everyone got infected.
Yeah, Aiden is the little brother.
Yeah, Aiden is the little brother, and he's missing too at this point, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Uh-huh.
Julie wants to take care of Lucas, but Paul isn't thrilled with the idea. They go to talk to Stokes, an old Native American man, and he knows more about the antler they found in the mine. He thinks it's from a Wendigo, a crazed, cannibalistic monster that feeds on flesh. Eating only makes them hungrier. It can only be killed by extinguishing its own beating heart. Paul thinks that's a myth, of course he does, and Julia is a little more accepting. Remember, she was teaching them Native American folklore early on, so she knows the story.
Yeah.
Julia takes Lucas to her house and tells him that his father is dead. But Lucas says that was his old dad who died. His new dad only needs food. He will come for me and take me to the mine to be with Aiden, he says. There's a howl outside. He's here, he adds. The monster then kills Deputy Dan, and Paul is also attacked. Julia says Lucas ran off to go to the mine, and she plans to follow them. She loads Paul into the car, who's been run through with Antlers, and instead of going to the hospital, they go to the mine instead. Paul's probably doomed at this point. She goes into the dark mine alone with nothing but Paul's pistol and a flashlight. She finds Lucas and Aiden, who tell her to go back. She then sees the Wendigo eating what's left of a bear. It still has parts of Frank's face stuck to it. He's been shedding the skin like a snake, but bits and pieces of the face are still there.
And that is a horrifying and realistic effect.
And pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
She stabs it repeatedly in the heart. Eventually it wears down, and she cuts out the heart, which kills it. Aiden then starts to scream. The Wendigo is taking a new host. Then she has to kill the little 10-year-old. Eventually, Paul recovers from his injury, and the two do decide to keep Lucas to raise. Paul just can't stop coughing up black goo. Yes, it's moved again.
Because he got attacked and he got infected.
Yeah, this may be the grayest, most depressingly morbid town ever, even without the monster. The sense of impending doom and dread is really thick here. This just is not a fun place to live. Add in the meth addicts, child abuse, and neglect, and you've got a seriously fun film. There's a whole backstory about Paul and Julia's abusive father that we never really see, but we get enough to know that it scarred both of them. Frank's abuse or neglect of Lucas and Aiden parallel this and make them all a lot more sympathetic.
Yeah, I think the dad was abusing them both, and she got old enough to move out and bailed on Paul, more or less. Left him with the father.
Do you think Paul got the same kind of abuse she did? Or was it just a sexual
I think
thing?
it was implied, yeah. There was sexual and physical abuse.
Okay.
I think it was implied that it was, yeah.
Okay, I kind of got the feeling that she
but you
felt
have to
guilty for leaving him.
Well, both, yeah. But, yeah, I think we kind of have to piece it together, but, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama here, and the monster is cool, and the special effects are cool, and it's very atmospheric.
Yeah.
Definitely a thumbs up.
Yes, good one.
All right. What's next?
Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
1985.
And this is directed by Dan Shoulder, written by David Kaskin and Wes Craven. Stars Robert Englund again, Mark Patton, and Kim Myers. Runtime is 1 hour and 27 minutes. There's a trailer on YouTube.
These trailers are always fun. I like the trailers.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, yeah. Well, the spoiler-free judgment zone. After the huge success of the first movie and popularity of Freddy's character, of course, they had to make a sequel. And more sequels, yeah. And this one is pretty good, taking a little different path this time. It's more of a possession tale, and less on the emphasis of appearing in dreams. The acting is good, Robert Englund is still great, and most of the effects still hold up.
It had not gotten to the point of silliness
effects.
yet.
Not quite, no.
I think of all the major franchises, this is the one that devolved the most due to comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Toward the end, it was nothing but one-liners and silly jokes.
I think they were trying to make it too funny toward the end, yeah.
Yeah. And they just could not take it seriously anymore. And we were watching one of the later Halloween movies last night, and that one never gets funny. They always take that one very seriously.
Yep, they do compared to the Nightmare movies, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, spoiler-filled synopsis coming up here. We start out on a school bus being driven by normal-looking Robert Englund. He's not wearing a mask. You gotta blink or you'll miss it, though. They miss a stop, but the driver doesn't slow down. Soon they head cross-country out into the desert, and look at that, it's Freddy now driving the bus. The bus is soon dangling over a deep pit with lava and lightning. Jessie screams. "Mommy, why can't Jessie wake up like everybody else?" asks his little sister as she eats her Fu Manchu's breakfast cereal. You always like the little details. Fu Manchu's.
Uh-huh.
Well, Lisa comes over, and the two drive to school. Jesse hears from friend Grady that the house they just moved into had some weirdness there not too long ago.
Well, and going back to the Fu Manchus, that was a nice little touch, too, because the toy prize in the cereal box was long fingernails that she had on her hands.
Oh, yeah.
Waving that at him, and he was kind of flashing back to the dream he had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a nice touch.
Okay, so the house they moved into, something weird happened last year. A girl watched her boyfriend get butchered just across the street. Yes, it's on Elm Street. That night, Jesse dreams of Freddy again. At school the next day, Jesse dozes off in class and is attacked by a snake, although this one's real. Lisa comes over and they clean his bedroom together. They find Nancy's diary from the first film. It's 5 years old. They read about Freddy, and Jesse recognizes the character from his recent dreams. Jesse goes down to his basement and looks inside the furnace. He finds Freddy's glove.
Where Nancy's mom hid it last movie.
Freddy appears and tells him to try them on. "Kill for me," Freddy shouts. Everyone in the house complains about how hot it is in the house, and then the birds explode into flames. That's pretty darn hot.
That's hot.
That night, Jesse goes out in a near sleepwalking daze. Jesse goes to a gay bar and runs into the coach. And nothing is ever made of the gay bar thing.
No, it
He's
isn't.
not a gay character. He's got girlfriends.
Uh-huh.
But, okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This was Freddy sending him there to get the coach, I guess.
All right. Well, maybe
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
He doesn't
more-
like the coach.
more
The
of a
coach doesn't
sleepwalker.
like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now he knows that the coach is secret, and the coach has it in for him. They go back to the school so the coach can abuse him some more, but the various balls and things in the locker room start shooting everywhere. Jesse watches as the coach is tortured by an invisible force. Then Freddy arrives and finishes the job. Or is it? We actually see Jesse wearing the bloody glove afterwards.
Yeah, it kind of blurs.
Is there
between
really, is
reality
there
and-
Freddy real, or is this all just Jesse's mind?
Yes.
Jesse's mom thinks he needs therapy. His father wants to send him to rehab. Either way, his parents are not pleased.
No, they ain't.
Lisa reads the diary, and they go to the power plant where Fred Krueger once worked. This is where the boiler room was. They go inside, and nothing happens. Lisa has a pool party, and she and Jesse make out, but it takes a weird turn halfway through. He tells Grady that he killed the coach, but Grady doesn't believe it. He wants Grady to watch him sleep and stop him from doing anything. Naturally, Grady goes to sleep as well. Freddy crawls out of Jesse and kills Grady.
Which was an awesome special effect.
Yeah, and Jesse wakes up just in time to find the body. Lisa confronts Jesse, and Freddy chases her around. Meanwhile, the pool party gets a little out of control. Lisa hurried right over to Freddy's factory, where she encounters several weird creatures and finally Freddy himself. Jesse still has some influence over his own body, so Freddy has difficulty killing her. Lisa kisses Freddy, and he burns. Jesse gets up and peels the remnants of Freddy off his body. The next day, Jesse and Lisa get on the school bus, and then suddenly he thinks the bus may be going too fast. It is all over, right?
Oh, sure. Yep, it's done. We'll never see Freddy again.
It's a good follow-up to the first film, where Freddy was destroyed at the end, more or less. Most of this film has you wondering if Freddy is real or if Jesse is just crazy, and it could go either way for a really long time. Freddy was seriously weakened with his death in the previous film, and he's obviously having a hard time manifesting in our world again. He's never been weaker than this film. It implies that this particular house on Elm Street is haunted, even though that's not the case in the first film. Nancy's house wasn't anything special there, but it seems to be the focus of Freddy's spirit now. When you change your whole cast, you got to have some reason to come back.
Sure, mix it up. Yeah.
Freddy's not confined to just dreams anymore. The whole pool party scene takes place in the real world, and none of those characters are asleep. Some of the visual effects, like Freddy climbing onto Jesse's body, were really well done. Others, like the human-faced dog things at the factory, were laughably awful.
Yeah, those weren't so well done.
All in all, a decent sequel, but wrapping everything up, and yeah, it did wrap everything up, and we're never going to see Freddy again, right?
Right, all done.
All done. Yeah, it was pretty good. And then we saw a short film. And this time we have Ignore It from 2021. Written and directed by Sam Evenson. Stars Madison Rojas, Madison Layson, Michael Pearl, Aina Dumlau, and Crystal Hughes. 6 minutes and 33 seconds. Link to watch the entire thing there in the show notes.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
YouTube is good. Yeah,
well, they got, a lot of these things.
Good resource for this, yeah.
What happens?
Well, Dad comes into Justin's room and warns him to ignore the woman as much as possible. Don't look at her, don't think about her. She's going to leave, but only if you pretend she isn't there, he says hurriedly. Well, the boy looks upset. This has happened before. And it's an awkward dinner, to say the least. Now, call me crazy, but if I had a strange woman ghost roaming around the house, I'd turn some lights on. It's an awful dark movie. It's just so dark that it invites the spirits practically.
They know the ghost is coming. The ghost has been there before.
Turn the lights on.
And it's so dark.
Yeah. Well, but it looks good. So it's very well acted and does look really good. Looks great. And you don't see much of the creature, but that's probably for the best.
Yeah. 1959, Attack of the Giant Leeches.
Yikes.
Wow, they're kind of scraping for monsters there, aren't they? Directed by Bernard L. Kowalski, written by Leo Gordon, stars Ken Clark, Yvette Vickers, Jan Shepard, hour and 2 minutes, and the trailer must be seen to be believed. Spoiler free?
Well, it's a creature feature, and it's okay, and it's not quite awful, and it's not quite great.
Very in depth.
Yeah, it's a 50s black and white creature feature, and it's
Giant Leeches. What can you say?
It's adequate. Yeah, we didn't hate it. We didn't love it. It's it's in the genre and decent, and if you're a fan of these kind of things,
it is
check
exactly
it out.
what the title in the movie poster advertises.
Yeah,
there's an attack and there's giant leeches,
and they look kind of octopusy though. They do suck out the blood.
I've never looked closely to a leech. Do they have suckers? I thought they just had a big mouth.
I think they have a big mouth.
Yeah. Okay. So these have suckers like an octopus or a squid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lem, a hillbilly, and these guys are about as hillbilly as they get, rows his boat across the lake. He sees something in the water and shoots at it. He takes another swig from his jug, because, hillbillies and jugs, and moves on. Credits roll. Is like Beverly Hillbillies with monsters. A bunch of locals hang out in Walker's General Store. Lem, the guy from the pre-credit sequence, is there, telling his story about the man-shaped thing with suckers on its arms. They all tell him he's been drinking too much.
Too much moonshine.
Big Fat Dave, and that is what his name is. He is Big Fat Dave.
That's what they call him.
Hey, Big Fat Dave. That's so nice.
Yeah, that's great.
The owner of the general store goes in the back room to talk to his slutty wife, Liz. She's going out, but won't tell him where. Dave's clearly out of his league with her.
Yes, he is.
Steve Benton and Nan Grayson are out on the swamp, putting animals out of their misery. He's the game warden. The two start to kiss, but are interrupted by a scream. It's Liz, and she's found a dead man, Lem. Steve knows that it wasn't an alligator attack, but the sheriff says it was. Nobody listens to the game warden.
And they should. He knows animals.
Yeah. Doc Grayson explains squids and octopuses to Steve and Nan. There's no way these saltwater creatures could be living in their swamp, so it's a bit of a mystery. The two go out in a rowboat later to investigate. They hear some things, but they don't see nothing. Dave and Liz argue again. She wants him to sell out and leave town after the killing. Liz and Cal are having an affair, and they go over to the swamp to make out in secret.
Such a romantic spot, too.
Yeah. If I'm going to sneak out to make out with somebody, I'm going to go to the swamp.
Out in the mosquitoes and the plants. And
and alligators and killer monsters.
Yeah.
Well, Dave's out there, too, with a shotgun, searching for them, and he finds them pretty quickly. He forces them to walk deeper into the swamp at gunpoint. Suddenly, the giant leeches come up behind Cal and Liz and kill them both. Surprise! The sheriff offers a $50 reward if someone can find the bodies. They all just assume that Dave killed the pair, as everyone knew they were fooling around. They arrest Dave, and they soon find him hanging in his cell. Doc Grayson still thinks there's some previously unknown life out there, but Steve thinks that that's unlikely. Meanwhile, a pair of local men are still hunting for the missing bodies in the swamp. They think it's odd that they haven't seen any gators in this swamp.
Something has scared the gators away. That's not good.
The leeches capsize their boat and take them both.
Or it ate all the gators.
Yes.
I think that's probably what happened.
Next, we see the leeches drag the men into their secret cave lair. Cal and Liz are there, but they're not dead. The leeches are keeping them alive and feeding from them. All the townspeople head to the swamp to search for the two most recently missing men. They also note the lack of gators. Doc wants to use explosive to bring the bodies up, but Game Warden Steve says that's too destructive. The next day, Doc bombs the swamp anyway. Nobody listens.
Nobody listens.
3 of the bodies float to the surface, all except Liz. We see that she's still down there alive in the cave. Doc examines the bodies and thinks that it's something like a leech.
All their blood is gone.
Yeah.
And there's marks. Wounds where the blood has been sucked right out of them.
Sucker marks. The bodies had not been dead more than an hour or so before the bodies were found, even though some of them had been missing for days. Steve and Mike put on scuba equipment and go, yeah, that's just great.
Yeah, wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. Put on scuba equipment and go down into the swamp with spear guns. The sheriff and his men watch from shore because he's a know-it-all jerk. There's nothing down there, he says. Steve shoots one of the creatures, not realizing there's more than one of them there. Maybe the proximity to Cape Canaveral has something to do with it. They use atomic energy there, Doc hypothesizes. Do they?
No.
Do they have a nuclear reactor at Cape Canaveral? I don't think so.
In those days, no. I mean, nowadays they launch some nuclear satellites and they use some nuclear power for some of the things they launch into orbit, isotopes and stuff. But back then,
atomic energy.
Back then, atomic energy was scary.
Yeah. Well, Liz finally floats to the surface, dead and covered in sucker marks. Steve and Mike attack the leech and drive it off. They drop a bunch of dynamite into the swamp, set up a detonator, and Steve presses the plunger. Boom!
Everything dead.
Giant dead leeches float to the surface. Problem solved. No, we see a few more of them slink off just out of range.
Oopsies. There were bunches of them.
Yeah. Well, it's a very straightforward, by-the-numbers creature feature. The acting is fine, the pacing is good, and the monsters are silly and ridiculous. Steve, the main character, is about as wooden as an actor can get, although he looks good doing it. He was hired for his leading man looks, not his acting ability.
He does. He was a fit specimen.
The actors who play Dave and Liz do pretty well here, but their parts end fairly early in the film. The underwater photography was pretty good for the time, but it's definitely no Creature from the Black Lagoon level. Yeah, that movie really was ahead of its time well, it was only a couple years before this.
Mm-hmm. But it was, remarkably clear.
Yeah.
I remember that.
The monsters themselves are silly-looking men in costumes that look like a cross between a starfish and an octopus.
Yeah, you can see they're men in costumes. Well, or women, people in costumes.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Very obviously.
Yeah.
I like how we're supposed to sympathize and root that, Liz will make it out alive when she was a slutty cheater, a gold digger, and caused her husband to kill himself. And she's the one we're rooting for to escape.
Yeah.
It's a happy ending for the two romantic leads, though. The sheriff gets taken down a notch, and the doctor has some interesting new specimens to study. The end. It's all right. It really is all right.
Yeah, it is.
Next up, we have Lake Mungo from 2008.
A documentary.
Sorta.
No, it's real. Directed by Joel Anderson and written by Joel Anderson. Stars Rosie Traynor, David Plunger, and Martin Sharp. Runtime's an hour and 27 minutes. And again, there's a trailer.
There is. Spoiler free. What happens?
Well, it's a very, very well done documentary. Does a nice job of letting events that happened unfold and be discovered by the viewer. Except it's totally fiction. Yeah, I was disappointed. It wasn't real. Yeah. Well, just when you think you know what's going on, they add another layer of things, and then another, and so on. And the acting and filming all seem pretty genuine.
Yeah.
It does seem very realistic, and the way they do it is very skillfully done.
People use the term mockumentary, but I think a mockumentary is more of a comedy, Spinal Tap and stuff like that.
Satirical. Yeah, this was very serious.
Not exactly
seem
found
very real.
footage. It's just made in the style of a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Alice kept, spoiler time, Alice kept secrets, we were told, as credits roll over images of old ghostly photographs. In 2005, a tragic accident began a series of events that thrust the grieving family into the media spotlight. This is a paranormal documentary of what happened to the family. We then see news reports of the family being interviewed after the accident. 16-year-old Alice went missing, drowned at the dam. We meet various characters that knew or were related to Alice as the interviewer asked them questions. It took several days before they found the body, and we get that story. It's all very newsworthy and kind of normal. In the coming months, they started hearing sounds coming from Alice's old room. June, her mother, started having nightmares and developed a tendency to sneak into other people's houses. That ain't right.
No, she's kind of neurotic. She went a bit neurotic about it.
Her father, Russell, kept hearing things in her room until he saw her there in her bedroom. Brother Matthew started getting random bruises all over his body, and he also started taking many strange photographs. Alice appears in one of them 4 months after her death. They start to doubt if the body found was really Alice. She must still be alive. They exhume the body, and sure enough, DNA confirms that it was really her. So who's in those photos?
Good question.
6 months after her death, Matthew catches her on video. It's dim and fuzzy, but there's clearly something there. They call in Ray, a psychic, to help. Ray sets up a seance, which Matthew also filmed. The seance didn't appear to work, but they spotted Alice in the video the next day, because they record the whole thing.
Yeah, and she was over in the background next to the furniture.
Yeah. Later, Matthew admits that he'd faked several photos with the camera trickery. He wasn't trying to fool people. He was just trying to keep his sister in their lives. Still, they all felt that there was something in the house, so they let the cameras run while they take a little trip. Okay, nobody's home. Alice still appeared in the new videos. They also spot their neighbor, Mr. Toohey, in Alice's room.
WTF?
What? What's the neighbor doing in there?
Yeah.
Turns out he's looking for the tape. Next, we see this tape. Toohey had Alice and another girl doing a sex tape. He knew she had a copy, and Toohey wanted to find it before anyone else did.
Oh, my.
But this is months and months after her death.
Many months, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Turns out Ray had also seen Alice before her death.
Well, it's probably not the first time he snuck over there looking for it.
Could be, yeah.
And it's hard to, not something that you can easily do.
She'd been having bad dreams. Ray didn't tell anyone this because of his confidentiality agreement. They no longer trust Ray after this revelation. June reads Alice's diary and considers the dreams that Alice had told Ray about. Had she foreseen her own death? They just pile this thing on deeper and deeper as we go.
Yeah, they do.
Alice had gone on a school trip to Lake Mungo a few months before her death, and they examined found video footage from that. Alice was seen in the woods burying something. The family then returns to Lake Mungo to find out what had happened while Alice had been there. They went to the place where Alice had been digging, and they dig up Alice's ring, her watch, and her mobile phone. On the buried phone, they find more footage. A strange figure came out of the darkness. It was the same dead body that came out of the lake. Alice had foreseen her own death, and this was some kind of omen. She had seen her own ghost. When the whole family returns home, the house feels clean. Maybe Alice just wanted them to know the whole truth. Ray then hypnotizes June one last time to wrap things up. June describes walking through the house, and her vision overlaps with an old recording of Alice having the same experience from her own point of view.
Yeah, that was cool. Like they were talking across time.
Yeah. They are together, but at different times. Then the family sells the house and moves. Could that still be Alice in the window? It never really ends. It's a fairly straightforward ghost story, but the documentary-style interviews and editing make it much more interesting than just a straight story, not just a straight narrative here. The low-quality, grainy, ghostly images are like what you'd expect in an old Bigfoot videos, and they're really well done and creepy here. I like the development that a lot of the video we saw was faked by Matthew. Then, though, the surprises start coming more quickly. There's not really much of an explanation of why this all happened, but then if there was, it wouldn't be a mystery, right? Yeah, she wasn't murdered. There was no monsters or demons involved. She just died and decided to come back.
Yeah.
It's good in a creepy way. It makes very good use of the found footage, grainy zooms, blurry images, and so forth. Definitely recommend it.
So we got some thumbs ups this week's.
They were all good, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, even the Leeches, sorta.
Yeah.
Sorta. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at horrorguys.com to read all the reviews and look for our books and so forth. Go to horrorguys.com/books to pick up our books. horrorguides.com/monthly to pick up one of the monthly horror bulletin magazines. Or go to horrorbulletin.com to sign up for the weekly newsletter. We're going to have movies next week, aren't we?
We're gonna.
Next week is Anime Week.
It's Cartoon Week.
Yay!
Yay, Looney Tunes.
But we got some good ones, don't we?
We do.
Ninja Scroll from 1993. That's one I'd seen before. And
I had never seen any of these before.
all right. Then we went on to Paprika from 2006, which you liked. Perfect Blue from 1997. And the one we were both most surprised about was The Empire of Corpses from 2015. That's the newest one.
And that's probably got the most horror elements, probably.
Oh, they all do
them.
it, of a sort.
They all do. I think maybe that one the most.
Okay. Well, Ninja Scroll has demons. Perfect Blue has, that one's a little harder to explain, ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
Paprika is more of a psychedelic.
More psychedelic sci-fi.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But they're all good, though. So
They are.
4 anime films, and of course we'll have a short as usual. And I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.